NASCAR has the Richmond National Speedway for the second race of the round of 16 of the NASCAR Cup Series Plus, and we see Joe Gibbs Racing put up a dominating clinic and take the overall victory here at Richmond. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. I just got done watching the Federated Auto Parts 400 presented by Salute to the Heroes at Richmond National Speedway, the second race of the round of 16, and I have to say that the race honestly was pretty decent overall. It was like your typical Richmond race. We're going to go ahead and talk about the overall race today. So before the green flag even dropped, Kyle Larson, who was already starting on the pole, and Cole Custer would have to go to the rear of the field for field inspection multiple times. Also, Garrett Smithley would have to go to the rear of the field for a driver change. So Kyle Larson, who had won the pole for the race, would have to start rear of the field doing to field inspection multiple times. So let's jump in the race. So Denny Hamlin would lead the race on the outside, and Truex Jr. would lead on the inside. Denny Hamlin basically would be able to jump out front, but also at the same time, Truex Jr. actually got the lead for a second, but we would see one of the early controversial moves of the race. Truex Jr. jumped the start of the race. Remember, at the start of the race, unlike the restarts, you cannot pass the guy who starts the race until you had crossed the finish line first. And Truex Jr., even though he made a pretty decent case, you still cannot pass the leader before you get to the start-finish line. That's been a rule for a very, very long time. So because this, Truex Jr., who looked like he was going to have a really strong car, could be a contender against Denny Hamlin in the race, he actually would have to serve a pass-through penalty, but he would not follow this race, and he would be a contender late in the day. We keep going racing for a while, and then the competition caution ended up happening with Denny Hamlin being the race leader. And then the next race car driver would have issues. Kyle Busch would actually have to go to rear the field on a restart for equipment interface, and also Bubba Wallace would get a speeding penalty at the same time as well. Kyle Busch, again, equipment interface, he apparently his tire had gotten into basically the pit stop, I believe, of Justin Haley in the 77, so he'd have to go to the rear field because of this. So we go back restarting with Kurt Busch on the inside and Denny Hamlin on the outside, and then Kurt Busch started getting extremely loose a few laps into the early portion of the race, and then unfortunately he would end up having a tire go down going into turn number one. A left rear basically just came loose. Maybe they had low air pressure on the car, which is a shame because Kurt Busch had a very strong car early in the race, but unfortunately because of his issues, he would fall out of the race and actually end up finishing last. So we go back racing at lap 48 with Denny Hamlin leading the inside and Joe Logano on the outside, and Denny Hamlin basically was able to pull away, and he would win stage one here at Daytona. Kyle Larson actually drove all the way up to the front too, not to mention he was actually who had to start at the rear. He had one of the fastest cars early in this race and drove his way all the way up to the front. And then we would see pit stops happen, and all the leaders would come down pit road, and then Denny Hamlin actually would win the race off pit road with Chase Elliott on the outside. Denny Hamlin actually got the lead for a little bit, and then Chase Elliott was able to pass Denny Hamlin a few laps into the run, and he was actually able to pull away in this race. And then we would see basically some green flag pit stops happen. A couple of the early leaders came in, and then Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott would come in, and then Chase Elliott actually was able to catch Denny Hamlin on the long run. The green flag pit stops would happen, and Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott kept battling for the lead. Chase Elliott had a hard time getting around Tyler Reddick, and Chase Elliott was still able to keep the race lead. And then we would see green flag pit stops happen once again. And then another big moment happened in this race about halfway through the race during the second round of the green flag pit stops in stage number 2. Chase Elliott actually had the race lead. Denny Hamlin already pitted at this point, but Chase Elliott actually had the lead early in this, and then coming to pit road, he actually would get contact from Ross Chastain, and he would back up into pit road, and then if the jack would break, this unfortunately would really hurt his opportunity to really contend for this lead because he lost a lot of time on pit road. He had a 36-second stop, and this unfortunately really would take him out of contention race. He would not follow this race completely, but this would take him out of contention for win because basically you had him trying to basically hold off Denny Hamlin to try to get through, and this is probably the next most important part of the race was of Chase Elliott trying to hang on to the lead lap from Denny Hamlin. Chase Elliott actually was able to keep on hold basically onto the lead lap for a while, and then he eventually lost the lead lap, but then Denny Hamlin started passing a few more cars like Austin Dillon, who he got around eventually, and then he had to charge his way up to try to get around Austin Dillon, which he ended up doing that, Austin Dillon and William Byron. He got around both those cars, and was actually able to be the first car one lap down, but Denny Hamlin at the same time would come off the corner and win stage 2 here, and because this, Chase Elliott would actually be the free pass car in this race. And then we go back racing a lap 245, but Denny Hamlin leading the inside and Truex Jr. outside. Denny Hamlin's actually able to get the race lead and clear And then the next caution for incident came out on lap 250 for Bubba Wallace, who was actually having a pretty decent run, is charging his way back up to the front after having issues early after getting into that tire for Kurt Busch. Bubba Wallace would have a tire go down into turn number one, a right front tire failure had hit him and basically hit the outside wall really, really hard. And he would basically not fall the race, but basically fall many, many laps down and fall out of contention in this race. And then we go back racing a lap 255 with Denny Hamlin leading the inside and Martin Truex Jr. leading the outside. Denny Hamlin was able to clear Martin Truex Jr. for the lead. And then there would actually be some contact that would happen between Kyle Busch and Christopher Bell. We all thought that that was basically going to have a tire go down for both those drivers, but they were both able to continue on. And then at the same time, Ross Chastain also had a speeding penalty at this time as well. But the next big moment of the race was Martin Truex Jr., and he actually got around Denny Hamlin for the race lead. After Denny Hamlin had a dominant car, Denny Hamlin's car started to go away a little bit, and Martin Truex Jr. was able to pass Denny Hamlin for the race lead, about 130 laps to go in this race. And then green flag pit stops would actually end up happening. All the green flag pit stops happened, and Mac Maddow would get another penalty for speeding at this time. But basically, green flag pit stops would happen, and then we would see some strategy, a little bit of strategy at this point, because Ross Chastain to pit a little bit earlier. He actually had a really fast car and a very strong car in this race. He actually got the race lead. And Kyle Busch, who had a really, really awesome pit stop, we actually pitted a little bit earlier than Martin Truex Jr. He actually beat him by 2.5 seconds, and Kyle Busch was able to eventually get around Ross Chastain for the race lead. And it looked like he was going to end up driving away with this thing. And then we would see the final pit stops happen in this race. Martin Truex Jr. would pit. He would have a good pit stop. It looked like Kyle Busch was going to have a clean pit stop, who had pit one lap later than Martin Truex Jr. But another big moment ended up happening. Kyle Busch, who was basically leading, it looked like he was going to run away with this thing and hold off Martin Truex Jr. for the victory. He gets a speeding penalty for being too fast entering on pit road. Another penalty for Kyle Busch. This would unfortunately take him out of contention. He would not go a lap down. He was able to keep on a lead lap, but that speeding penalty pretty much took him out of contention of this race. Because of this, Martin Truex Jr. had the race lead, and Denny Hamlin also pit extremely late into this run. So the big question was, with him having a nearly 8-second lead over Martin Truex Jr. having a 8-second lead over Denny Hamlin, the big question was Denny Hamlin going to have an opportunity to run Martin Truex Jr. down? And it looked like he was actually going to start doing that. He was reeling him in. 7 seconds, 6 seconds, down to 5 seconds with around 25 laps to go. But the big issue for Denny Hamlin was the traffic was really, really affecting his car. And when even at a track like Richmond, a short track, clean air can still be a major, major factor. So because of that, he really never got an opportunity to catch Martin. He was still catching Martin Truex Jr. at pretty quick and pretty speedy pace, but he really never got an opportunity to run him down. Coming off the final corner, Martin Truex Jr. will hold off Denny Hamlin by 1.5 seconds, and he pick up his first win since all the way back in Darlington in his first race in the playoffs and his fourth race of the 2021 season. Martin Truex Jr., I think, probably had the second best car most of the day, probably actually in the race, probably the best car at the end of the race, because remember, he had to come back from a speeding penalty, come back from jumping the start of the race, and we haven't really seen a lot of people do that where they jump the start of the race and they've been able to come back and overall win a victory. So to see Martin Truex Jr. overall do that was really, really impressive to watch, and great to see Martin Truex Jr. pick up his first one. And this definitely has to be a big momentum confidence booster for Martin Truex Jr. going into the latter rounds of the playoffs. And also, I did pick him coming in this weekend just because Martin Truex Jr. probably had the best car the last time we were here at Richmond, and unfortunately lost it out there. And I expected Truex to win. I'm not surprised to see him win the race, and also Joe Gibbs Racing putting up a dominating clinic doesn't surprise me either. So huge congratulations to Martin Truex Jr. And definitely you have to circle him as a favorite to win the championship right now, because he's been really good on the 750 tracks, with 4 of his victories coming on the 750 tracks. And Phoenix is very similar to Richmond, and guess where he won? Guess what he did earlier for Phoenix? He won that race. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But good to see Martin Truex Jr. when he won. Let's now go through the results of tonight's race. So Martin Truex Jr. puts up a pretty pretty good clinic and finishes the race. Denny Hamlin finished second. Denny Hamlin probably for the first 2/3 of the race probably had the best car, but unfortunately his car kind of fell off with the adjustments. He ended up probably being the second or third best car, but a very solid second place finish after winning last week in the Southern 500. He's definitely got to have a lot of confidence and booster going farther into playoffs. Very strong run for Denny Hamlin. Christopher Bell, really strong run in third place. I expect Bell to have a pretty decent run tonight. This is definitely going to help in the playoff grid. We'll be taking a look at that in a little bit. But a very strong run for Christopher Bell. They tried the long game with the strategy game, and I think it paid off for them because at points they were actually falling outside the top 15 early in the race. But they worked on the adjustments. They looked pretty strong in the long run. And a very solid third place finish. Great run for Christopher Bell. This will help him in the playoffs in the long run. Chase Elliott finished fourth. Solid comeback for Chase Elliott, considering he basically had those issues on pit road about halfway through the race. I think he had a really strong shot to win the race if not for those issues. But to show that much speed, especially at a track where he's been hit or miss at the pass, the fact that he's able to finish fourth, great run for Chase Elliott. This definitely has to show they have a lot of speed and good. They had a really good run going until those issues happened, but a very solid top 5 run for Chase Elliott. Joey Logano finished this fifth. Joey Logano ran most of the race around the 4th to 7th place finish, so ran about where he finished. Solid run for him tonight. Kyle Larson finished 6th. Solid comeback for Kyle Larson tonight. Kyle Larson probably got a top 5 car most of the evening. Again, he kind of fell back on the strategy and stuff, tried to play that long game, and unlike Christopher Bell, his strategy did not work as well in his favor, and I think his car kind of fell off the longer we got into the run, but still, a solid top 10 run. He's also advanced to the next round of the NASCAR Playoffs. He accumulated enough points going into the next round, so very solid run for Kyle Larson. He finished 6th in tonight's race. Ross Chastain finished 7th. Probably one of the standouts of the evening. Ross Chastain ran in the top 10 pretty much the whole entire evening, and I hope that this is big for Trackhouse going in next year because I think that right now Ross Chastain is showing that he can do this. He's been really, really good, especially over the last couple months, but the fact that Ross Chastain finished 7th in tonight's race, and he's been really, really performing well, and he didn't really run that well last time we were here at Richmond, so I do think that Ross Chastain is building on a lot of momentum. Great finish for Ross Chastain. He finishes 7th. Kevin Harvick finishes 8th. Not the, I would say pretty decent run for Kevin Harvick tonight. Just enough probably hold on to the playoffs. He ran top 10 the majority of the night. Saw a run for Kevin Harvick. Kyle Busch bounces back to a 9th place finish. Still finished top 10 after a speeding penalty. This sadly, however, will help him in the points because he gained a lot of points tonight after having a pretty short run. He finished 9th in tonight's race. And Ryan Blaney, solid top 10 run considering we've gone to he's not been really that great at Richmond in the past. The fact he's able to finish 10th. Not a bad run for Ryan Blaney. This should help him in the playoffs going into the next, especially if he's able to make the next round. He should have some points going forward. But 10th place finish, solid run for him. Austin Dillon finished 11th. I think he's the first car that finished a lap down, so not a bad run for Austin Dillon. He was my underdog pick coming in this weekend because Austin Dillon has ran pretty well at this track historically. Solid run for Austin Dillon. He finished as 11th. Alex Dillon finished as 12th. Not a bad run, not a great run to be honest. Again, he kind of got behind early. The car wasn't that great, but a 12th place finish, not a bad run. Brad Keselowski finished as 13th. I'm a little disappointed in Brad. I thought Brad was going to run a lot better than he did. The car just never really seemed to come with him. He's going to be really having a hard time going into, well, I think he's in right now on points, but he's got to hope that Bristol, nothing goes wrong at Bristol because he's been hit or miss at Bristol historically, so we'll have to see what happens when he finishes 13th. Aric Almirola finishes 14th. Pretty disappointing run for Aric Almirola. I expected him to run top 10, and he actually ran top 10 a lot of the night, but I think he had issues on pit road where he had to come back down for a loose wheel, so he did bounce back a little bit. He finishes 14th. Tyler Reddick finishes 15th. Chase Briscoe finished 16th. Solid top 20 run for Chase Briscoe. Daniel Suarez finishes 17th. Solid top 20 run for Daniel Suarez tonight. 18th place finisher Matt Benedetto. 19th place finisher William Byron. Really disappointing run for William Byron tonight. William Byron is really going to be basically going to be going into the next race at Bristol in a must-win situation because he's so many points behind. I thought he'd run a little bit better than he did this weekend here at Richmond. Not a great run for William Byron. He finished 19th. Ryan Newman finishes 20th. 21st place finisher Eric Jones, 22nd place finisher Cole Custer, 23rd place finisher Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 24th place finisher Chris Buescher, 25th place finisher Ryan Preece, 26th place finisher Anthony Alfredo, 27th for Justin Haley, 28th for Michael McDowell. He's in a must-win situation going into Bristol as well, and he's been hit or miss at that track in the past, so we'll have to see what happens. Corey LaJoie finishes 29th, 30th place finisher BJ McLeod, 31st place finisher Garrett Smithley, 32nd place finish for Bubba Walls after his issues. Bubba was running top 15 and top 20 most of the evening until those issues happened, but he finished like 10 laps out of the race, which is really, really unfortunate to see. Joey Gase finishes 33rd, JJ Lee finishes 34th, Quinn Houff finishes 35th, Josh Blickey finishes 36th, and Kurt Busch finishes last after his accident early in the race in 37th. And now, let's go ahead and take a look at the playoff grid going into the last race of the round of 16. All right, so now let's take a look at the playoff grid. Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., and Kyle Larson have an advance. Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr. with their wins at Darlington and Richmond, and Kyle Larson on enough points. They have advanced to the next round. Joey Logano is 4th in the points currently at the moment. He is 40 points above the cutoff line. We're in pretty good position. Just doesn't have to crash at Bristol. Ryan Blaney is 5th in the points, 28 points ahead. Kevin Harvick is 6th, 25 ahead. Chase Elliott with a decent recovery night. He finishes 19 points ahead of the cutoff line. 8th for Chris Bell. He's 17 ahead of the cutoff line. Brad Keselowski's 9th in the points, 13 ahead of the cutoff line. Kyle Busch is 10th, 8 above the cutoff line. Eric Almirola right now is 11th, 3 points above the cutoff line. And Kurt Busch is last right on the grid, 0 points ahead. Alex Lemon is 13th, 0 points below the cutoff line right now. 14th is Tyler Reddick, 5 points below the cutoff line. William Byron is 15th, 18 points below the cutoff line. And Michael McDowell is 16th, 38 points below the cutoff line. If I'm looking at the playoff grid right now, I think that Tyler Reddick and Alex Lemon do not have to go into Bristol in a must-win situation. No. I think if any of these guys that are outside the top 12, I think Alex Lemon is the most likely. I think Tyler Reddick is probably going to need to win, even though he's not that many points below. He's been hit or miss at Bristol in the past, so he's probably going to have to go in there. William Byron, must-win situation regardless. You can make up 18 points in a race if he runs extremely well at Bristol, but he's been hit or miss at the track in the past, so I think that William Byron is going to be looking to have to go and win that, and Michael McDowell is in a must-win situation regardless. So that is your playoff grid. So now let's overall talk about the race and give you my score on tonight's race at Richmond International Speedway. I thought tonight's race at Richmond was pretty decent. It wasn't the best race I've ever seen, but I thought tonight's race was pretty decent. It's like your typical Richmond race. There's a lot of long runs, there's a lot of comers and goers, and there's a lot of strategy in the race as well. I see a lot of people that really hate on Richmond. I will admit, I don't think Richmond does deserve 2 races. I think it deserves 1 race. I think a lot of tracks should come back to 1 race, especially on these schedules. But I think that tonight's race is really that bad. I thought it was a decent race overall. I'm going to give tonight's race at Richmond International Speedway overall a 7 out of 10. Like I said, it's your typical Richmond race. It's one of those races where, you're going to have a lot of long green flag runs. You're going to have very few cars finish on the lead lap because remember, there's only like 10 cars that finish on the lead lap. It's like your typical Richmond race overall. So I give tonight's race a 7 out of 10. So, anyway, that is my race review for the Federated Auto Parts 400 at Richmond International Speedway. Next week, we're going to Bristol, the half-mile track at the Coliseum for the last race of the round of 16. And we will find out the cutoff line, and we'll find out who advances and who goes home after next week's race at Bristol Motor Speedway. So, anyway, that is your tonight's race review from Richmond International Raceway. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe to the channel, turn notifications so you're notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Answer where I paste on the description below for that and comment your thoughts on tonight's race. What are your thoughts on tonight's race? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know your score in the comments below. And congratulate Truex Jr. on picking up his first win in the NASCAR Cup Series Plus and his 4th win of the 2021 season. Anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video. And I'll see you guys next time for some more great and awesome NASCAR content on the channel like this going forward. Take care, everybody.